crashing down. I'm left in nowhere, no place to hide. Out in the open, like ashes in the sky. I quit the illusion. I'm moving
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Dota Procast, episode number 4. Looking forward to once again being with you guys to talk some more Dota. There's plenty going on. Of course, the TI qualifiers are in full swing here, starting with the Open qualifiers, which we're definitely going to talk a bit about, as well as now the regionals in full force. I mean, they jumped right into it, especially for 3 regions. Really didn't have much of a break there from the Open to the regional, but that's the case. Plenty of Dota at hand. Ultimately, those 8 spots on the line for TI8. and looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. Of course, I'm BreakyCPK, as always, joined by Elevated. How you doing, Elevated?
Doing very well. There's so much Dota to watch, and unfortunately, it seems like we're in a little bit of a delay, but all the games so far have been pretty interesting, and I expect that to continue as we just grind it out for the next week.
Yeah, you talk about the delay. Currently, the South America region, one of the 3 regions that's going on, they are having some issues. I don't really know how else to put it. Apparently, there's some suspected DDoSing going on from who. We don't know exactly. If it's just some random people that are betting on the games, who the hell knows, really. But several of the teams have had issues, and there was one specific match with Thunder versus Pain, I believe, that had these issues definitely incur, and as a result, that match specifically will be replayed, and on top of that, they're just going to delay the rest of the matches that are currently taking place for South America. So they ran into some issues there, but hopefully, that's all figured out and is all sorted out by the time tomorrow comes around to finish that off. But it's been a crazy, it's not even been a full week yet, and we've just had so much Dota over these last 5 days even.
So much Dota and so much drama. Hashtag esports
gosh.
problems, I suppose.
Yeah, that's on the docket to talk about. Speaking of drama in the open qualifier specifically, there's been plenty there. So obviously we'll give our takes on that whole situation. But also, as you may or may not know, we're going to be joined by Jenkins. Jenkins of Team Leviathan. You may know him from that. You may know him from Dota Alchemy. He also does a lot of training videos in general. He's been doing that for a while for several sites. He's also a teammate of BSJ, of course, who just qualified with Team Leviathan for the regional qualifiers at for NA. Whether or not they're going to do well in that, hey, we'll see what he thinks, and I'm going to ask him about how he feels. Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about that later on when he's on the show, at least. So he should be joining us in about 20 minutes or so from now. That is at least the plan. I know you're actually friends with Jenkins yourself there.
Yeah, I talk to him on a pretty regular basis, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, just watching that stack play in the opens was super exciting, just because obviously BSJ was streaming the whole thing, aside from just like a few conversations here and there. And I always love it when somebody does that, just because it's really interesting to listen to these teams communicate, and like each team has different communication styles. So I had a lot of fun staying up to watch those last few games and see the relief on their faces when they finally won that last game.
It's cool. It's cool that we got that perspective from that, because I 100% agree with you that it's definitely, it allows us as spectators to appreciate what goes on behind the scenes to play for such a big opportunity, because let's be honest, heavy majority of us never will get that opportunity, never have had that opportunity. I mean, it is open qualifiers, but obviously to get that far and ultimately qualify for the regionals, it's a pretty cool feeling, and it was cool. But that is also something I do want to talk with Jenkins about later on, kind of previewing that, but the idea of streaming those matches, it does open you up to some strategies that you're talking about during the games, and how opponents can take advantage of that, I guess. So obviously I don't think they're going to be streaming their regional matches. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say, but at least the open qualifiers, that was a fun experience. Speaking of that, open qualifiers, we had a lot of matches. So let's start getting into it. Let's start kind of going over again. If you weren't able to watch most of it, we're not going to sit here and break down every single region by any means. We're gonna kind of go through, maybe talk about the bigger storylines from them. Now, these open qualifiers, they're probably different than really any other open qualifiers we've had in the past, because in a sense these kind of were the regional qualifiers just extended, right? Like, because so many regions had so many teams competing in them due to this funky rule set that happened this season with DPC. And so, Europe was the most teams that were initially invited, with 4 teams. Outside of that, there was mostly 2-1. Even in South America's case, no teams were actually invited and all had to play in the open qualifiers. So first, I guess let's talk about just the overall open qualifier experience. How did you feel about how it all played out, and were you satisfied with how it played out?
I don't know. It's kind of a weird question. Was I satisfied? Yeah. Like there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened. I think pretty much the teams that we expected to make it through did make it through. I don't think there were any huge surprises necessarily in any of the regions.
Well, there was one. Now, to me, not necessarily. But there was one team, Navi from CIS, did not qualify. So, I think it's for the name brand that they are, and they are skilled enough players. Like, let's be honest, they should have qualified. They are good enough for that. So, I think that is the one team though that definitely stands out.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that's debatable. We haven't seen anything from them basically the entire season. So I guess the only thing that was surprising about Navi's performance is how badly they bombed out.
Yeah.
I mean, they made it to the round of 8 in the first qualifier, and then they didn't even make it out of the round of 32 in the second qualifier. So that is, I mean, frankly, that's unacceptable for a brand like Navi. So I wouldn't expect to see most of these players on their team next season.
Oh yeah, this organization, the organization is itself not going to explode, but the team, that obviously now leaves a question marks. Is Dendy still going to be a part of it even? And I would think perhaps because if anything from a business perspective, it's safe to say Dendy brings a lot to the organization. But that's not qualifying even for the regionals is quite the blow. And it kind of goes back to the whole CIS discussion in the first place, right? Not to get too much into it again, but, the fact that they only got one team to qualify. This is a prime example of why we both kind of defended that idea that they only deserve one team, because you have a team like Navi. People go saying, oh, they were, 13th or whatever in the DPC. Well, again, the biggest reason for that was because of Lil. And then on top of that, when you look by the eye test, we knew that they had a very, very unsuccessful season. They definitely did not deserve their invite to the Super Major, and that's kind of the storyline for several teams in these CIS events, of the CIS teams, that is. And again, it goes back to them just ultimately deserving that one spot at the end. But there is also some interesting updates in the regional qualifiers. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later on with CIS, as that is going on right now. But yeah, outside of Navi, I don't think, I'm kind of glancing through right now, and I don't believe that there was really any team that stands out from any of the regions. I guess we were talking about China had eHome as one of the teams, but even that, right. It's like, that's kind of a stretch, right? eHome hasn't been significant for a while.
Yeah, I mean, despite having, some members from the Wings team, they haven't had the performance. I'd say maybe one other possibly surprising thing to a lot of Dota fans might be just that, the Fear and Kyle stack didn't make it to the regionals in South America. But that being said, again, we talked about it last week, where it's kind of tough to make that move and just expect yourself to form a team, move to another country, and then perform super well within a week's time. So,
speaking of internet issues, they apparently were dealing with quite a bit of that themselves. But again, apparently all of South America is having issues when it comes to playing in these qualifiers for whatever reason. So yeah, that is another one I think is worth bringing out. But like you just said, I'm not the most. I still am kind of a little surprised they didn't at least qualify for the regionals. But to be fair, the teams that they lost to, in their case, were. Let me see if I can pull it up real quickly. Doesn't have it on here. For the first qualifier, I know both of them were actually legitimate teams. Well, No Ping Esports didn't even end up qualifying in the end, so maybe they should have beaten that. No, they beat that team. Never mind. They lost to Midas Club, and then they lost to who ended up going on, and then they lost to Taurus Gaming, who also ended up advancing on. So it's two solid teams in South America. But yeah, putting this team together, moving to Peru for this purpose, it's like you said, it's. None of this is really the most shocking. It's not like a team like EG didn't qualify. I mean, everyone kind of qualified as far as the overall expected for the regionals. So,
and I actually kind of wonder if this is almost a little bit of a preview to next year's sort of qualification system for the majors and minors, where we have sort of these longer extended qualifier periods. And if that's the case, I mean, there definitely are a lot of cool storylines that come out of this sort of format. So. Something to think about.
Next, again, this is pretty unique, though, with how these opens worked out because of how the rules played out for DPC and everything. Next year, though, when it comes to the open qualifiers at the end, it is going to be much, much different. But, yeah, throughout the season, like you're talking about with the minors and the majors, perhaps a glimpse of what's to come. But So more to talk about on the open qualifiers. Unfortunately, it's maybe not the the greatest. I mean, my overall feeling of the event was, again, there was a lot of Dota to watch, like you said. Really, most of the teams qualified as expected in the end. I personally did have the most fun watching Team Leviathan. It goes back to that as far as watching their first-person perspective. It was really cool to kind of see that and get behind them and ultimately seeing them qualify in the end. So I also happened to be away from internet for a good 2 days there, 2.5 days. So I didn't get to catch the most of the end of the first one as well as the beginning of the second one. So there was that as well as far as influencing me and my opinions on it. But some things I did catch was several interesting decisions. We'll put it that way. Interesting decisions being made by the Face It admins and just in general the tournament organizers and stuff. So we'll start at the beginning. The first one that kind of came out was the Wild Wing Ripper Tornado. Obviously, for whatever reason you're not familiar, the Wild Wing Ripper, the falcon-looking creature, neutral creep, spawns a tornado. I see you smirking over there like, yeah, okay, we know what it is. Hey, just in case somebody tuning in doesn't know, we're all about teaching here on the stream.
Pink Big Bird.
The pink bird. There you go. That's a good way to put it. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So the tornado itself, apparently there was a bug in the game that was found out basically as the open qualifier started, that if you try to target while the tornado was activated near you or essentially on you as an enemy creep, then you couldn't really click anywhere in the area. It would kind of force your character to almost run towards the Chen or whatever.
Yeah, it would make you run towards the enemy fountain, I think, or something like that. So
it was kind of a big deal.
Obviously, pretty game breaking considering how much Chen is played in the professional scene.
Mm-hmm. So Chen himself, we see him banned all the time. So now that's a bug. It's understandable. Now the idea of what does Face do to try to get around it? They initially made the announcement that you're allowed to use Wild Wing Ripper. However, you can only use the tornado ability to farm creeps, push out lanes, essentially not use it to gank heroes or put it anywhere near an enemy hero. And I tweeted out as soon as I heard that and saw that, I was like, this is only going to end up badly. I understand the spot that Faceit was in when it came to having a bug like this, because it's not like a hero. You can't just say, okay, the hero's banned or an item even. A neutral creep is going to constantly spawn, and telling a team, you can't really tell a team also that they can't use the creep or play it, because then that really does ruin the flow of the game. So
right.
I almost
what if all of the big camps spawn as that?
Yeah.
Are you
what do you do as
Chen? You can't play the hero.
So personally, I kind of just felt like it was for Faceit. They should have just kind of let it be in a lot of ways and just said, we are going to be monitoring it, and if we notice that you are abusing it, then maybe you can go along those lines, but we'll make a judgmental decision, something along those lines. But they try to be very specific of you cannot use it near a hero. It just felt very odd to me. And obviously with this big event, I'm sure Valve was going to be on top of hotfixing it, and guess what? They were. They did end up hotfixing it pretty quickly. I'm actually curious. Do you think that Faceit did the best in terms of dealing with that situation?
No. I don't think they did an absolutely terrible job, just because I think they tried to get too much out of it. They tried to be too specific in what you could and couldn't do with it. Making it too complicated of a rule where you could use it to farm, you could use it to push lanes, but you can't use it near heroes. That's just it's too complicated. Basically, I don't know. I think I would have just said you can use the Ripper, but you can't use the Tornado, which makes the creep pretty useless. Other than just giving you the armor aura and using it as a meat shield for towers. So not totally useless, but a big part of that unit is camping it behind the safe lane trees and then running the tornado to dive the tower. That's definitely a big part of why you would take that creep in the first place. So it makes the creep pretty bad, but I think that's a much more simple solution than being you can use it for this, and this scenario, but not this one. And expect the teams to kind of figure that out on the fly in the heat of a moment. stressful moment, like trying to qualify.
Well, that's the other thing for me, too, is that getting that knowledge to all the teams, because, again, they literally made this announcement as the qualifiers were already happening and starting. And like I said, it's not their fault that this bug was found at that time. I understand that. But then it's like, okay, what if a team didn't happen to read that tweet, right? And I know it was being retweeted and posted on Reddit. But you can't, there's realistic cases where teams aren't necessarily going to be reading all the social media from these specific people.
I think they sent out a memo to the team.
Did they? Okay.
I'm pretty sure they actually did that. I remember reading, I think, like, we'll get into the IGV stuff, but I remember in that thread there was something about how a message was sent out to the teams that this was the case and this was the rule.
Well, so that leads us, let's just, a nice tie-in right there, IGV, Invictus Gaming Vitality in the open qualifiers. They ended up having, so Valve made it a point that shortly after, it was within like the day, like less than a day even, I want to say, it was pretty quick after the announcement came out that they had hotfixed it. They made the hotfix. It was a simple change apparently, whatever. So it's fixed. You're good to go. A game later on in the China region, apparently IGV, I forget who they were even playing in that match, whatever.
Don't remember.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter for the point of this, but basically I think they had a Chen and they went to use it early on, and apparently they also kind of asked the team so they went to use it early on and then the game was paused. Because it's like, okay, well, is this bug still in the game? And they even asked the other team, is it okay if we use it, because obviously the bug's not even there anymore? And the other team agreed, but then an admin stepped in and essentially told them, no, you just use this, we're going to disqualify this game now. And so we're sitting here like, what? Oh, okay. And IGV, they were kind of just pissed off in the moment, thinking it was ridiculous, and I agree. And so they ended up leaving the game. Later, it ended up getting remade and played on, from my understanding. But in the moment, it was the admin kind of reacting, not really using the best judgment, and still sticking to a rule that at that point was outdated, right? So it basically caused this whole kind of, unfortunate situation for everyone with the whole Wild Wing Ripper ruling there. But it was a little bit of a black eye amongst a couple towards the admin's administration of the event. I know it's a hard event to run ultimately. Obviously, there's a lot of teams and a lot of things to look out for. But personally, I do wish admins would be more willing to make judgmental calls and not simply stick 100% to the rule book on cases like this as they happen to.
Yeah, somebody in chat saying it's IGV against CDEC that it
okay,
happened in. And yeah, I mean, that's like the purpose of the admin, right? Is to make good decisions. And while there is some argument, okay, it's in the rule book, like they shouldn't have done it just because it is in the rules. But at the same time, like if it's fixed, if the bug is the only reason that you weren't able to use this creep and the bug is now fixed, it should be fairly logical that you can just go ahead and use the creep now. Obviously that wasn't the case, and that wasn't the decision that was made initially, and it's a hard spot to be in for the admins, I'm sure, but at the same time, it's like that's your job is to do this. So, I don't know.
Yeah, like again, it's a tough spot. Like I said, these events there's a lot going on. I understand that, but exactly, be willing to make those judgmental calls in the moment. Now, ultimately, again, the match is replayed, so. Really, it didn't, and obviously IG Vitality ended up qualifying in the end. But still, you would kind of wish it never really got to that. But that's what happens when you have these very specific rules, trying to make some on-the-fly adjustments, and they're a little bit, I guess, lucky that more actually didn't come of it, as far as the quick changes and everything. There was a couple other pieces of drama throughout. Again, there was one rule that was brought up where. If a 5-man team DCs, if they all just DC, so clearly some LAN issue or whatever, that they're all landing, and so something happens, then the other team is allowed to unpause the game and continue playing. And
was that the rule? I didn't actually read the whole thing. I didn't read the actual wording of this rule, but I mean, just the just the fact that one team had the balls to unpause in this game and end the game is unbelievable to me.
This happened as you're getting it. It was in a South American game, I want to say.
Yep, it was Thunder Predator against Pain.
That's right. It was against Pain, yeah. So they actually abused this, and apparently the funny thing is because they ODC'd like shortly before that, and Payne paused the game for them. Understandably, because if anything, it's just good sportsmanship, right? But then, as you're getting at, it happened to Payne for whatever reason, and then Thunder unpaused the game, saying like, "Oh, we're just following the rules." So the fact that that's even a rule in the first place, that's just one of those like face palm, like what? Why? Like the flow, and again, when open qualifiers event, yes, there's a possibility of some teams abusing stuff like this in the earlier rounds, perhaps. So it's like that's why it feels like the rule is in place in case. Like, see, I don't even know how you could truly abuse it though. Now that I'm really thinking about it, but it's.
Dude, I mean, here's the thing. It's like we are obviously in a young industry. We're in young sports, esports, whatever you want to call it. But the fact that a team actually did this to me is like pretty unforgivable.
Yeah.
I mean, you're playing this game because you want to compete ultimately. I mean, yeah, money is at stake. Obviously, a TI slot is at stake. But I'm sure that most people play the game because they want the competitive experience. And so the fact that this team actually did this means that I hope that this team never wins another game for the rest of their entire Dota career, because I think it's total bullshit. I think that the people on this team are really terrible sportsmen, and I don't think that they should play in these qualifiers anymore because, like, it's just the integrity of the game. Why are you even doing this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm super pissed. I'm a huge stickler for sportsmanship. And it's just unacceptable, man. It's just completely unacceptable that a team would do this. And so, yeah, like I said, like Thunder Predator, don't win any more games. Don't play the game anymore.
For what it's worth, Thunder Predator ended up qualifying in the second qualifier, so they are in the regionals. Unfortunately, I'm with you there. They are in the regionals, and they're once again dealing with the South American issues as far as the internet goes. So hopefully that gets we're good to go tomorrow.
I hope they lose.
I hope they don't finish top 4 and get eliminated. Yeah, I'm with you there. It's horrible sportsmanship, and that definitely is more on the team. I agree. It's one thing to have that rule in place, but it's another thing for the teams to actually do what they did in that case. Again, we are going to have Jenkins on here shortly, but just a couple other things to go over quickly as far as now. And we're kind of doing this, and it's making real. I mean, open qualifiers are overall decent, and like I said, it's a difficult thing to do, but it's still worth, I think, bringing up a couple of these kind of just brain farts, almost however you want to describe them, throughout, and hopefully that these are things that are looked at for the future as far as running said events. Down the line. One thing I actually noticed I had left off and I'm just remembering was, of course, the whole reschedule of the first day of North America, where North America, the open qualifiers, they were supposed to play, obviously, like everyone else, and they played, like, teams like EG and stuff, they played 3 games, I think, in most cases, and then they were informed later on that day 1 doesn't count because apparently there was some game coordinator issues, or like there was a patch even that came in, and it caused an issue with the Faceit bot that forced some of the initial teams, who were the lesser teams, let's be honest, teams that probably weren't going to have any significance whatsoever, they forfeited their initial matches because of said issue. Again, that's unfortunate, and it's an open qualifier, so from that perspective, you want to give the chance to everyone at least to have a chance. I'm doing air quotes here, but to have the whole day completely replayed is completely bullshit to the teams that did have to play and the teams that are significant and do actually have the chances of advancing on. So that was one of those, again, out of all of these, I think this was the one that kind of was the most frustrating to hear about for me personally, because we have to stop this mentality of like, oh, we want to give everyone a chance. Guys, let's be honest. Yes, it's an open qualifier, but we actually want to see the best teams in TI. We don't want, Joe Schmoes to get through just because of some whatever happening and some issues, and then have the regionals be ruined because of that. So the kind of helping out to make sure Joe Schmoes gets to play in the first round of an event, I just was not a fan of that decision right there. But it was made, and ultimately, the teams as expected still moved on and everything, but still, that had to be frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely frustrating from all sides. Like, ultimately, the open qualifiers are meant to be for the community, like by the community, and I totally understand that. I think, again, this will be something that is fixed next year with the new system, so I'm glad for that because the opens will be actually open, I assume. And it was like an exaggerated problem this year because we had like half the teams that would normally be invited to original qualifier in the open qualifiers.
Yeah.
And that's why it was such a big deal. That being said, like, again, a lot of these issues are kind of tough judgment calls to make for the team that's organizing it. But I would say that clearly we have some serious growing to do in the industry because it seems like every single year in the open qualifiers or in the qualifiers, there are some significant issues to deal with, whether it's Facet's fault, whether it's Perfect World's fault, whether it's Valve's fault remains to be seen. But we need to continue cleaning this up, and hopefully next year's system will do a lot of work towards doing that.
Yeah, so it's just some of these, again, it's just you would have figured and hoped that from the past experience and just in general would not have allowed it to happen, but it did. Like you said, learn from it, if anything, moving forward here. So that's the biggest thing to take from it. And then one last thing, again, kind of probably the lesser of all of them, I think, but it kind of got under my skin a little bit, seeing was the seeding. The seeding, actually, of a couple of the teams in the NA region specifically. I actually didn't even really go through some of the other regions. It maybe wasn't as blatant in some others, but in NA, the first open qualifier, Evil Geniuses and VGJ Storm met up in the round of 8, which at that point, you lose that, you're eliminated. We're talking about two of the top 3 teams, top 4 even if you want to say, in the region, but no doubt that's the case. Why wasn't initial seeding done going into it is completely beyond me. This goes back to my point of, yes, it's an open qualifier, but we ultimately want to see the best teams advancing on for the health of the tournament. And yes, because the open qualifier is how they work this year, that's part of it too, but Face It really should have done a better job as far as making sure something this blatantly obvious didn't happen. Obviously, VGJ Storm, who ended up losing to EG, they did end up qualifying in the next one. Thankfully, could you imagine if they didn't, what would have happened here? But it's still, the fact that was a possibility, them getting eliminated and not advancing on because they lost to EG in the open qualifiers, that should never happen. So that's just another one of those oversight things from Face, in my opinion.
I mean, ultimately, VGJ Storm would have either had to play against Complexity or EG to qualify in one of these like initial slots, regardless of where they were in the bracket. But they definitely should have been probably the higher seed than, for instance, Backstabbers, who ended up being the ultimate round of 4 opponent for EG.
Mm-hmm.
But it also means that the Face It admins are ranking BSJ's Team Leviathan stack at the same level as VGJ Storm, which bodes well for Team Leviathan come regionals.
That's a good play. You good to go? Let me ask you real quickly. That's a nice lead-in, actually. I told Jenkins we'd be having him join us pretty much around this time, so make sure he's here, then add him to the call. Okay, it looks like he is good. So let me put him in here. Why is he not showing up? He is my friend. Can I just drag him in? How does this work? Invite to... Huh. I guess he's not my friend. Oh, he hit ignore. Yeah, he was telling me that. I went to add him on Discord, and he apparently hit ignore instead of accept. For some reason. Accept.
Classic Jenkins.
My friend, please. I want to be your friend. So once he does that, then we can actually add him to the call right here. There we go. Looks like he did. Instant, yo. Wait a second. Why? Oh, there we go. Okay, I just made a new one. I guess. All right, there we go. All right, cool.
Hello?
Jenkins, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, yes, we can hear you. Did you ever get that webcam?
Yeah, let's see here.
Ooh. Nice.
Oh, there I am.
Oh,
Okay.
look who it is.
Oh,
who
look
it
at
is.
that. Oh, God. Give me a sec.
Let me
Look at
actually...
that degenerate.
Hold on, you're not
The
on
hell,
camera
man?
yet. There we go. Now you should be after.
I feel a little close. I feel huge.
Boom. Look awesome. Welcome to the show, Jenkins. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Talking plenty of qualifiers here, going over all the open qualifier drama that happened. But now we have you on, so it's going to be better news from here on out. That's good.
Oh yeah, I've been listening. You guys are just complaining.
I know.
Nonstop.
I kind of started to realize that how it's like, God, this game sucks. Why do we even care? No, it's. I mean, open qualifiers, they were good in the end, and like I pointed out, only because you're coming on, but part of it from a spectator, it was great to watch because of your team actually, getting to watch the streams and everything.
Hey, thanks,
guys,
man.
So, yeah, well, not
That's
you
good.
specifically, but BSJ at least.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, like, that's why everybody's watching. Nobody cares about the rest of us. Just BSJ.
It's BSJ +4. Let's be honest, right?
Because I mean, it's just like a skill thing. Like you want to watch. You obviously want to watch the best player in the world mechanically. See what he does, like with his, his mouse, his keyboard, stuff like that. Because there's got to be something up with it. Because he's just obviously so skilled.
The best
only person.
Well, the best player in the world
person
that just lost to
God
Grant
damn.
Grant, by the way, in a 1 versus 1.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's the thing is that like he's obviously incredibly skilled, but somebody like Grant is on another level. Like that's not. There's really no comparison because I would say Grant is more of like a machine rather than a person. So it's like you can't even put that on the same level. You know what I mean?
That's very true.
He did beat Fear like many years ago in his prime. So.
I mean, Fear won a TI, so that's basically equivalent to winning TI yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
this is just getting out of hand now. I like how he does bring that up quite a bit. Though. I mean, to be fair, I probably would too. You beat such a big name player like that, a TI winner, then it's a pretty big deal. So understandable.
I mean, in reality, I'm pretty sure Grant's actually pretty decent at Dota.
He undersells himself. Honestly, he is actually better than.
He's pretty good. I'm pretty sure.
When he's talks about sometimes. So. Not surprising to see him be BS. No, but all right. Let's start talking about your team though in qualifying here. For the regional event that of course is coming up in a couple days now. But the open qualifiers, you went into the open qualifiers. What was your mind? Did you actually expect to qualify for the regionals, or were you kind of just going into it? Let's just have some fun, see what happens.
I definitely don't think we expected to qualify. It was more so we played together before. It was fun. Obviously, a lot of us got kicked from that fucking team, but it was like nobody disliked each other because it was like a good time. It was kind of just like moving on and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just like, okay, we had fun playing together. Let's play together again. We didn't really have any expectations, but then we won, which means we're like objectively top 8 NA, which is really fucking funny because it's like we're just like a shit stack. You know what I mean? But I was walking with my girlfriend the other day. I was just thinking like, wait a minute, we're objectively top 8 in like one of the strongest regions. What the fuck? I mean, obviously it's like one of the strongest regions, but that's because there's this huge gap between tier 1 and tier 2. Like it's just funny to say it out loud. It's not that it's some like impressive feat or something. It's just really funny.
You can
How does it feel though?
Yeah.
I feel pretty good. I mean, it's like validating because obviously, Donnie, we make Dota videos and stuff together for Dota Alchemy, and it's like you win it. You win an open qual. Like it's a meat grinder. Like an open qualifier is usually pretty awful because it's just all day playing. Like you can fuck up one best of one really easily. It's not fun to play. Like it's way easier to just be on a team that gets invited than it is like all you need to do to be on a team that gets invited is like don't disband and you're good. Don't kick a player and you're good. You get invited as long as you're competing in like tournaments consistently and stuff. And most tier 2 players can do that, but obviously in NA that doesn't happen. Everybody fucking disbands and kicks each other. So it's pretty hard to get through opens for that reason because like everybody goes through opens. So like I said, it's validating. It makes me feel better about like making Dota content and stuff because it's like, well, I have a pretty decent idea, obviously, if you're going to get through opens.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, actually, do you, like, I assume that you were pretty nervous going into that the last couple of series because it is, like, it's for all the marbles, as it were, but
I wasn't nervous.
No. I was going to say, were you nervous at all, like, through any of the games leading up to those final BO3s?
No. This is like a personal thing for me. But what gets me nervous is feeling like under a microscope of, and I know that sounds ridiculous with all like the crazy shit that I say, but like if I feel like somebody that I like is disliking me or not trusting me or something like that, it like it fucks me up. It's all I think about. So as long as my teammates don't put that pressure on me, then I don't really feel nervous about things. And they didn't, obviously, because I've played with them like multiple times. So it wasn't like, okay, I need to impress these guys. I already like they already know who I am. There's no like I don't need to fake anything, you know what I mean? So I didn't feel that kind of pressure. Although now that I'm in the regionals and it's like there's 3 slots and there's a potential that we could actually take a game off of, you know, I don't know what the format is.
It's
but
best of 1 round robin.
Best of 1 round robin. Jesus Christ. So like we actually could cheese and win, or we could just play really well. Like there's 3 slots. Almost 50% of the people go. Like that's fucking crazy. So that makes me a bit nervous. And like the main thing that I'm working on in the past couple of days is literally calming myself down and being like, I don't fucking care. I'm gonna play Dota. I'm gonna play Pudge. You know, like I don't care. Like I'm gonna lose. Like I want to set myself up to have the mentality of losing, even if deep down I think that it's possible that we could win. You know what I mean? Like you get in some sick coach. There's like all even if there's like a 2% chance, that still kind of makes me nervous, just because it's like it's international. You know what I mean? Like it's the biggest esports event, period, ever. Like literally ever. I mean, unless I don't know, with prize pools and shit. Well, that's another subject. But it literally, it's just like that's the only thing that like 2% chance. I'm trying to work on just calming myself and being like, I don't fucking care.
It's 3 teams out of 8, man. It really is. There is a shot. Like you said, it's best of 1 round robin into a playoff stage. So anything, I really do believe anything can happen. Obviously, you got your favorite teams, but so on top of that, now you're just trying to stay focused. Are you guys actually scrimmaging? Are you guys practicing? Because I know BSJ just went to the BTS hub and everything. How is that coming along?
Yeah, we are. I mean, he just flew out. We're looking for matches tonight. So hey, if anybody wants to scrim, we're scrimming, and we might be getting a coach in and stuff. We're definitely practicing, because I think I think we can actually improve in even a couple of days, to the point where it's possible that we could cheese, or maybe teams are having a bad day, or maybe we just have a good understanding of Dota. Like you never know what can happen. Like a lot of open qualifier teams tend to do decently, actually, just because they've had that practice of going through opens. And I remember last year I was playing on Team Kingdom, and we didn't go through opens. We just got directly invited, and we took a game off of Team Freedom, who went undefeated after that.
That's right.
And we cock blocked them from TI. So sorry guys for that. I actually really like those guys. I feel bad about that, because that's like the only game we won that mattered. But then the next game we started losing and kind of getting at each other's throats. I mean, I don't want to say I wasn't getting at anybody's throats, man. Like I don't know. I don't want to fucking
Anyway,
I'm not
call people out. We're here for drama.
No, dude. Oh shit! Did I close Discord? Oh no, I'm still here.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
There were some people that were getting upset with each other, and it got awkward, and there was like tension and stuff, and then we just crumbled. Like we completely crumbled. But if you go through opens, that's not possible. Like you would have already crumbled. Like you guys talked about backstabbers. They didn't join the second open qualifier. They fucking crumbled. Open qualifier is a meat grinder, man. Like it will destroy teams that aren't willing to play a lot with each other. So there is something of value being an open qualifier team, just knowing that you made it through the gauntlet, and that you don't hate each other. You know what I mean? And I mean, it was all streamed. Like everybody saw how much we bickered at each other and stuff like that. And we're all still friends. And it's like, but that's how intense it gets. That is just how it is in competitive Dota. Like everybody wants it so fucking bad. Like no, if somebody says they don't want it, they're lying. And I'm going to say that I don't want to win. And it's just a lie. I'm just trying to convince myself so I'm not here. It's a lie. Everybody who plays Dota wants to go to international. Every fucking person. Even every 3K, every 2K, everybody wants to. It's the dream. It's just it's so like glamorous and awesome, and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, like you said, you obviously have a different career in Dota 2 as well, creating a lot of videos, doing some of this tutorial content and stuff. So you got kind of a side career going on. Is there part of you that you wish, and are you even trying to actively be part of a pro team throughout this whole season, maybe in the next season coming up, or are you fine with doing it like this, where you play in the open qualifiers at the end and see what you can do?
That's a good question. That's
That's why I'm
I'm
asking.
I'm pretty okay with doing my own thing. The way I see it, and this is just a personal thing, is that if I'm good enough to be on a tier 1 team, then I'll be, top 10 in the ranked leaderboards. I will totally have my shit together. It'll be very clear to people in pubs that I'm really, really strong, and I can keep grinding on that while doing other stuff. And if it never happens, it never happens. That's okay. The way I see it, I'm basically just kind of I'm doing the whole content creation side and stuff because, I mean, I'm a lot like you guys. Like, I just want to create, put something out there. Like, I have that urge, and also it pays the bills and stuff. But with the competitive aspect, it's like, if that's just an opportunity based thing, really. It's not just like something you can grind on. If it happens, it happens. If you're good enough, you're good enough. So the way that I'm playing it is basically, if I get invited to a team or I get an opportunity with a team that's a good one, I will take it. But I'm not planning on doing that kind of like tier 2 grind thing unless it's with players that I really, really want to play with, or some big opportunity, just because there's too much on the side going on. But yeah, I mean, I would play pro if there was an opportunity, for sure.
Definitely.
Do you think that the content creation that you've been doing, I mean, because you've been making educational videos for like a year and a half, almost 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's made you a better competitive player ultimately?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when you make videos, you have to actually think about why you're doing things, and not just, oh, this is some impulse that I learned because I saw Arteezy do it, or I've played a lot of pubs, I see people do it, people flame me, call me a retard for not doing it. Like, there's just, you have to think about why things are actually being done, and that gives you a much better idea of how the game works. So it's like writing an essay about a subject. I can guarantee you, every single person that's watching this right now, and you two, knows something about some subject that nobody else knows about because you did a fucking book report in 5th grade. Guaranteed that there's some subjects like Margaret Thatcher or something like that. I don't know. Everybody has that, like, a couple of things. Oh yeah, I did a speech on that. I did a book report on that. If you do research and you actually like aggregate and formulate something together that is coherent, you will remember something. You'll remember something like it's, riding a bike or something like that. It's so much better for remembering actual concepts as opposed to just kind of feeling them.
So we talked about this a little earlier as well, with, of course, qualifying for regionals, the fact that 3 teams go out of it. Do you think NA did deserve 3? I know it's maybe a bias thing at this point, but do you truly think NA deserved the 3 spots, or should have been more spread out?
Oh man, I mean, that's like, it's a difficult subject. I'm a pretty big fence sitter on most things, so I'm pretty bad to ask this question, but I would just say that it's in like math or logic, they would call it arguing definitions. Like, first you need to define your axioms, and then after you know what those are, you argue about whether people deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if it's based on DPC points, then yes, NA deserves it. I mean, mathematically that is true. If that is our assumption, then yeah, that is true. But like, after that point, if you step back any further and start arguing about like why, it's just kind of like we're like monkeys throwing darts at a dartboard with a blindfold on. Like, really, it's just, how did Valve make that decision? Like, deserving it is just based on what the conditions were. But as for what the conditions are, I'm not sure. That's a pretty complicated thing. I think Valve was just trying a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, I would say, because I think they did it based on DPC points, I would say yes. I would say they deserved it based on the conditions that Valve set out. I just think that's what their conditions were, and they're just trying things, which I can understand. Like, Valve wants to try things with their game. Valve has always done that, and it's obviously worked. Valve is an insane company. Valve makes like masterpieces. So it's like, if that's their method, then I'm cool with them trying it. And maybe next year they won't get 3 slots based on the same reasoning, because the reasoning has changed. Mm-hmm. So I would say, yeah, I'm totally okay with it, but I'm also open to other things because I like the fact that Valve is trying stuff.
Are you excited about the new circuit next season? I am sure you saw the new DPC announcement and everything. You think that'll be for the better?
Oh yeah. The fact that, what is it? Less events, the minors lead into the majors, which makes the minors obviously way more important, which they were important, but they weren't as important as they could be. What were the other things? Obviously, less events. There's 2 a month.
Teams that qualify for the majors can't be in the minors, so it's like it enforces that the minors are more of like the second level teams.
I mean, I'm gonna love that one, obviously. like that's great. Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I've always been a big believer that there needs to be a support of the tier 2 scene. And obviously, like you said, there's obviously gonna be some bias there. But that's a big reason that Donnie and I, well, at least that I wanted to do Dota Alchemy with Donnie, geez, words, is because I want to also support players. Like, it's not necessarily just about, obviously we want to create awesome content and stuff like that, but I think that there's a lot of ways that players can use the information that they know about the game, and it can be monetized. And there's a lot of really brilliant players, like Yoar, for example. Yoar literally won a major. That guy's a fucking major winner. We almost lost Yoar. He was going to school. I'm pretty sure he said he was going to do one last tournament. We almost lost Yoar. The guy's brother is like the best mid in the world, a multi-millionaire from the game, and we almost lost his equally skilled brother. They're both amazing players, but it's just because on the tier 2 level, it's really hard to support yourself. But I don't think that's because there isn't money out there. I don't think it's because those people are not worth something. They're not worth supporting. I think that esports is just relatively new, and the pathways to get that financial support, they're not so obvious to people. And obviously, thank God for BTS, thank God for Moonduck allowing people to do casting and stuff like that, like being an analyst. That allows a lot of tier 2 players to support themselves. And man, a lot of these guys do a great job. VSJ, obviously, that guy's one of the best analysts in the world. You listen to him, it's awesome. Like the way he speaks about the game, he's got a stream, he's got all these revenue streams, but a lot of players don't, but they still have really worthwhile information. So I don't remember what the goddamn question was, but I'm just going off of the players.
No, it's a good tangent.
I like supporting the tier 2 scene, to be honest. I really like supporting the tier 2 scene, and that's my reasoning for it. It's not just bias, obviously a little bit bias, but
no,
I did want to actually point out that, like, again, the Chinese region, we have like Team Serenity, who nobody's ever heard of before, and FTD as 2 of the top 4 teams in China. And who's heard of either of these organizations outside of the Chinese team before? Nobody. Like, China has significantly more infrastructure than any other region, and it shows because every single year some open qualifier Chinese team makes a splash. Wings, CDEC, it happens literally every single year. And so that's pretty awesome, honestly.
Yeah,
it is awesome. It is awesome. I mean, with that being said, I do feel pretty lucky that I'm able to, like, I had Pugna, obviously. Pugna paid off my goddamn student loans. Like, I've supported myself with this stuff, but I know a lot of people that are way better than me at Dota and so eloquent the way that they speak that they could definitely be analysts. They could definitely do stuff, but they just don't for whatever reason. Like, they just can't, or they don't, or they just don't. They don't. I don't know. It's weird, but I think there's a lot of revenue that's not being earned from these people that are just filled with information. They're so good about the game with the game. And I mean, they could literally coach, but some people just don't, because they don't even know that something like DotaCoach.org exists, because they're like Donnie's saying, the infrastructure's there in China, like a lot of infrastructure, but in NA it's not really there, which kind of makes sense because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like in my community, my local community, people aren't really super into gaming. It's kind of like, it's still like a nerdy thing. Like if you're a gamer, you're kind of a degenerate. Thank God for Fortnite becoming popular, though, because that is definitely making it more mainstream.
It's changing the world, man.
I think that's actually a big reason for it, is that there's a lot less organizational support because of the general tone of gaming here, I guess. Whereas in China, I don't know if you guys have ever been to China, but like if you're into gaming, like you're an athlete there. Like I remember I was wearing the WCA jacket, and I went out and we were scrimming Alliance in some LAN center when we were playing for WCA, and they were bringing us like free drinks. They gave us the free LAN center, giving us mouse pads. Everybody wanted pictures with us. They didn't even know who we were. They wanted pictures with us just because we had the WCA jackets on. Like, gaming is just way more advanced there, and I think that's the future here, man. I really hope it's the future here, because gaming is fucking cool.
It is cool.
Agreed on that one.
Yeah, that I'll not disagree with. So it's definitely a bright future, honestly, for Dota 2 and esports in general. I agree. So it's just a matter of time before that all takes off here. Jenkins, winding down here. Definitely want to thank you for joining us. But before we do let you go, I mean, there's one kind of big question that's been brewing for me, and I know a lot of people out there. What the hell did Coddle Guy really do to you, man?
I have to be honest, man. That's not something that I really want to talk about at this moment. Pretty traumatic experience. I think that guy has there's gonna be a reckoning. There's gonna be a reckoning.
He has what he has coming to him. Yeah, no, that you totally didn't know you were being streamed, I'm sure, and that just leaked and everything. Jeez.
No. I mean,
careful.
I would because it's the thing is, like, I mean, I hope this isn't being streamed because
no one watches this. Don't worry.
You obviously know the type of guy he is, and he's dangerous. He's a dangerous man.
I don't believe that now.
Filled with rage. No, I can't. He's actually like the nicest guy I've ever met. Holy shit!
That's what makes it
That's
so
why
great.
it's so funny. It's so funny. Oh, everybody was so confused.
I know. Well, for good reason. First off, but no, it's something told me there was kind of not the whole story being told there. So
something I don't know. Yeah, there's something off about it. That's for sure.
It's really cool to see your success though with these the open qualifiers, and obviously we definitely wish you the best of luck. Elevate any other questions before letting Jenkins go here?
No, man. Good luck in regionals. We'll definitely be excited to see what you guys can do.
Yeah, it'll be great to watch us lose.
No. I'm casting NA, by the way. I'm going to the BTS sub. I'm going to be casting NA, so I'll probably cast a couple of your games, hopefully.
Be biased.
Towards the other team, yes, I will be.
Well, that makes sense.
Get real hype when Jenkins feeds.
Usually biased towards the better team, so that makes sense, actually.
Yeah. If it's complexity, I'm going to have to go for them, all right? So
I'd like to make an official statement, actually, that we are going to 3-0 complexity, Vici, J, EG, Immortals, and Optic in a row. Even if we're not playing a best of 5, we are going to still 3-0
I was about to say, that doesn't even make sense. Okay.
Doesn't matter. Like, we're going to... If we have to DDoS them, which we will, we'll DDoS them. We'll DDoS them so the match gets remade.
That's a dangerous topic right now. Probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, we're gonna DDoS them just like Pain Gaming DDoSed. Oh wait,
the other way around. It was.
All right.
I think it was Midas, or I don't even know. South America's going through some stuff right now. That's.
Dude, I'm gonna get Valve banned actually. Valve banned from tournaments for sure.
All right, there you go. That's how it's gonna end for Jenkins. He's already decided he's gonna get Valve banned. No, it's gonna be fun watching Team Leviathan, and again, truly do wish you the best of luck. It's not gonna be easy, but hey, 3 spots. You never know. It'll be fun to watch. All right, now get off my podcast.
All right, thanks for having me, dude.
See ya.
See ya.
All right, that was fun. Now I need to fix this. Dang it. Actually, here, let me. See, now my cameras are screwed up because is he still removed from group?
Jenkins just ruins everything, man.
Yeah. No, turn that off. Here, let me recall you in a different group. One sec. Gotta fix this. Okay, there we go. Bringing it back on. So that was Jenkins, of course, joining us from Team Leviathan. That was fun to do. He's a fun guy to talk to. He's definitely energetic, clearly plenty to say, and would like to have him more on in the future. You know, if they qualify for TI, I guarantee he's definitely coming back if they qualify for TI. I'll say that.
Sorry, I didn't realize I had to pick up.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's because the whole group call messed up my camera shots and everything. So there we go.
Right,
back to normal.
I'm back.
Boom. Back to the good camera shots here. Just want to make sure you're looking good. That's all that matters. So yeah, I mean, I think that they like obviously so you can be sarcastic guy at times, but overall the mentality should be for a team like that is just you play with nothing to lose because frankly they're obviously not expected to do anything in the regional qualifiers, but like we talked about, it's a best of 1. 3 of the 8 teams qualify. I'm not going to sit here and say I predict them to advance on by any means, but I would be surprised, but again, the point is it's possible if they do.
Ultimately, like, let's say, for example, that Complexity loses to Optic, VGJ Storm, and Evil Geniuses. That's 3 losses.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if they happen to come up against Immortals, who cheeses them? That's 4 losses. Now, they're basically out of the running.
Yeah. That's true. That is true. So it's, hey, making top 4, and then 3 of those 4 teams advance on. So the playoffs You're already in a pretty good spot. Speaking of that, we are going to give our predictions here in just a minute. So I think now is the time, of course, to start going over the regional qualifiers themselves. Just a quick kind of preview, glimpse on through, and see not only how some of them are currently going, but how or what we think of the future ones that are set to happen. So we'll start with China, because China was the one that kicked things off here. Pull it up on
And it
screen
starts
for you
up
guys.
again really soon too.
It really does. It starts like in, 3 hours, I want to say? 3-4 hours?
5, yeah.
5 hours even? Okay, so it is in the playoffs, as you're getting at. So we already have our top 4 teams advancing on here. You mentioned this earlier. For the Dream and Team Serenity, the top 2 teams, and then LFY and Invictus Gaming, personally the teams I had moving on. I'll just get the predictions out of the way off the bat, and I still have them predicted. But for the Dream, we look at this roster. I can't say I really recognize any of their players. I don't know if it's different for you, but this is
No.
No?
Who is Raji on? That name sounds kind of familiar. Okay, he was on Geek Fam before FTD.
Okay.
So
Playing South
I
Stage.
very vaguely remember that name from some of the SCA qualifiers like earlier on in the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these 2 teams, like FTD has gone 6-1 so far. So clearly they are feeling it. They're feeling the patch. They're feeling Dota right now. And then Team Serenity was an open qualifier team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
They don't even have, actually, I guess.
Well, they all were. IG was the only team
that's-
that wasn't open, yeah.
That's true. That being said, like, Team Serenity doesn't even have a Liquipedia page, whereas LGD is, a sub-team of LGD, and this team in its entirety. Actually, did they have DDC last TI? I think they had DDC last TI.
I believe so, yeah.
But 4 of their 5 players placed top 3 at TI last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's some really interesting dynamics in this Chinese qualifier that are going on right now.
Well, yeah, worth pointing out, Keen Gaming, to be honest, going into the China qualifiers, I probably would have picked Keen Gaming with LFY, but I did my predictions in game after I knew the top 4, so cheated a little bit right there. But Keen Gaming was the one team to me that you see them knocked out. Honestly, I mean, they finished 4-3, the same record as IG, but IG had the tiebreaker. Or it looks like they did play a tiebreaker, and LFY ended up going 2-0, and IG beat Keen Gaming as well. So again, those 3 teams duking it out, and ultimately IG and LFY moving on. But yeah, seeing King Gaming not advancing on, not the craziest thing ever, like I said, but it's that would have predicted them as well as LFY before this all started, no doubt. But hey, again, any 2 of these 4 teams can definitely still qualify. Now they play double elimination playoff bracket, as is the format with all these open or the regional qualifiers now, I should say. So what are your predictions? The top 4 now. Who do you have advancing on?
I'm going to go with LFY. I still think that they have the potential to, just on paper, they should be better than these other teams. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with LFY, and I'm going to go with Team Serenity, actually. I don't think Invictus Gaming really stacks up that well. They haven't really impressed me. I mean, XXS is number 2 on the Chinese leaderboard. He's obviously a very skilled player. Aggressive, obviously pretty big name, Baboka, Q. But they haven't really impressed me in the small sample size that I've seen them this year.
Yeah.
And I personally would just love to see one of these smaller orgs get a shot at TI.
Yeah, with you there, and perhaps a bit of living in the past with IG, and to your point earlier, too, China is just, it always is kind of an unknown, mainly because their Tier 2 scene especially is so well developed compared to every other region. And teams like a Team Serenity can come into the open qualifiers and all of a sudden qualify for TIA. It's very, very possible at this rate.
Yeah, we don't really know. Like, Team Serenity might have been totally killing it in the Chinese Tier 2 scene. They might have been doing well in the DPL or whatever the other leagues are. I just don't stay up late enough to follow China that closely.
I'm with you there. It's tough to follow sometimes. All right, CIS, the next one in line, it's also begun, and as you see, we have some development here. Now, again, the big storylines from this, going into it, I still would have picked Spirit. Spirit is the team I ultimately do have advancing on, and getting the prediction off the bat. they are advancing on a second place spot. But Vega and Team Empire, two very known teams in the CIS region, and a lot of people put them constantly in the top 4 in CIS. They got finished 7th and 8th. Vega didn't even win a freaking game in the end. So is this a mix? Is this really more this how deep this region is as far as just overall good competition, or these bad performances? Personally, I think it's just a deep competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the regional qualifiers are always really interesting just because there are so many like inter-regional metas that develop throughout the course of the year, throughout like their pubs and their scrimming and that kind of stuff that you don't really get to see on the international scene, right? Because you usually just have 1 or 2 teams from each region, and they're just playing this like international meta. Whereas in CIS, you probably have all of these teams that are in this qualifier scrimming each other constantly, maybe playing in their qualifiers to Star Ladder and Dream League and that kind of stuff. And so they probably have lots of information and habits and that kind of stuff between each other. I didn't really expect a whole lot out of Vega Squadron, to be perfectly honest. I didn't think they were that strong of a team. Team Empire obviously has some skilled players on it, but they also have been shuffling their roster a lot this year. Chuvash and Naive, I think, are quite recent additions to their roster. So despite the fairly big name of both of these organizations, their teams are not really stacking up that well against these teams that have been grinding it out recently and having good results, like Fly to Moon and Team Spirit.
Yeah.
And I would say the biggest surprise to me is Espada with BZZ, the Pugna guy, and ILTW, Nix, and just like kind of like the CIS region seems to be. It's like a mishmash of various.
It's like that's where that
players.
player ended up. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That have been in the scene for a long time, but not necessarily having success, but always playing on one team or another, maybe being on Navi briefly, maybe being on Empire briefly, maybe being on Team Spirit briefly, but then ultimately moving on to something else. So I don't know. It's definitely deeper than we thought, but I don't necessarily know that like Vega and Team Empire not having a good performance necessarily speaks to like the absolute depth of the CIS region. That's
fair. If you weren't going to mention this spot, I definitely was as well. So yeah, this is, you look at the roster, you're like, oh, well, again, it's not that surprising they got top 4, specifically in that 3rd place spot. But I go back to, I'm still liking Team Spirit. That hasn't changed for me. I do have them winning out of CIS. Obviously, Fly to Moon, of course, a lot of people understandably are also going to be rooting for / expecting, but frankly, any 4 of these teams, I would not be surprised at all. It really would not be if it's any 4 of these teams. Even Double Dimension, again, you have several players on the squad. Vanscore, Cheshire Cat, King R. These are all known players, very similar to Espada in the scene, and have been around a while. But prediction-wise, I do go with Spirit. What about you?
I think I'm going to go with Fly to Moon. I just think that Iceberg is a better mid player than G, and I would say that Silent is a better, more stable carry player than Illidan. And the other 3 players on the team, I would probably give the edge to Spirit, but I'm just going to go with Fly to Moon because they have the momentum at this point.
All right, South America, again, the 3rd region that's currently underway. Now, as we've been mentioning throughout the cast, they currently are on a delay, however, a postpone, however you want to look at it, because of a lot of server issues. They've been having multiple teams constantly disconnecting throughout their games. We talked about the whole drama that happened earlier in the open qualifiers because of that, but it's now transitioned into the regional qualifiers. And frankly, I don't know why the postpone's even happening, because apparently, like, it doesn't even sound like the organizers even know, to be blunt. It's like, oh, we're just going to wait a day just hoping that everything magically fixes, is what it honestly sounds like, is what's going on here. And maybe giving the teams a chance to reinforce their internet or something. I don't know. Maybe playing from a different land set. So perhaps there is something there, but I unfortunately wouldn't be surprised if these internet issues continue to happen come tomorrow. But as it stands currently, again, this is only 6 teams in this one compared to 8 in every other region. But there's 6 teams. SG Esports, of course, picking up Flea, as well as Stan King going into these qualifiers. They are currently 3-1. They're guaranteed a top 4 no matter what happens now. Likely a first or second place spot at this point. Feeling pretty good going on.
Yeah,
South America.
I mean, they beat Pain already, so they've gotten through most likely the hardest test in the region so far, and actually came out on top in that one. So clearly the NA leadership from Stan King and bringing in Stan King and Flea have kind of been like a duo for the last year or so. Mm-hmm. Having a nice, I think, and ultimately I think that's like one of the biggest things is, right, you have a very solid support duo that are helping to run the team. It doesn't have to be that they're from NA, but they have 2 support players who know how to play together, have been playing together for a long time, have good communication as like the stable foundation for this team to thrive. And their other 3 players, Laposa, ADR, and Costabile, are really good. Like, they are really, really good players. Adriano might legitimately be the best mid player in South America, who's actually from South America, if we're not counting we in this conversation.
Fair enough. Yeah, of course, he plays for Pain there. Ultimately, I do have Pain Gaming still my predicted team. That has not changed for me. Yes, SG defeating them definitely opens up the door for more contention, and as you pointed out, having Flea and Stanking, pretty big deal. But I still have liked what I've seen with Pain Gaming throughout this later part of the season, and to me, they still feel like the most complete team in South America right now. So unlike the other regions, I would be surprised, honestly, if Pain Gaming does not qualify for South America.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, we haven't seen these teams play in a best of 3, obviously. They lost one BO1 game, which doesn't, speak a whole lot about the matchup in like a bigger best of 3 series. Yeah. So I'm with you on Pain Gaming advancing from this one for sure.
All right, so now we're going to start dipping into the regions that have not started yet. We'll start with Southeast Asia. In this case, Southeast Asia actually has 2 spots, as we know. So you had your invited teams initially, Fnatic, TNC, and Boom ID. We talked about them already. And then the teams that qualify through the open qualifiers. Again, I think one of the more notable teams, definitely TNC Tiger. In Your Dream, we were talking about in the last week's podcast show as well. He's a fantastic player, ranked number 1, has been for a while in Southeast Asia. Definitely a team to look out for. They kick it off this Thursday with all the other regions, or I think it's actually Friday with all the other regions themselves. But
and TNC against TNC is the first match that we get to watch, actually.
Is it really? Oh, we actually know that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. I don't even see that on here.
You got to go to like the expanded details, which shows the group stage and all of the matchups.
Okay. But yeah, so Southeast Asia getting 2 teams. For me, it's a competition between 4 teams. I don't think any of these. Well, no, I shouldn't say that because Entity Gaming is legit actually. So 5 teams. The other 3, not expecting much. Alpha Red, Battle Arena Elites, and Sterling Global Dragons. I definitely do not expect them to do anything when it comes to this. But Entity Gaming, especially my boy Black, would not mind seeing him qualify. I don't think it's going to happen in the end, but.
I mean, Battle Arena Elites, Ohio, Yamate, and Net. I would give them at least as good a chance as Entity Gaming.
I don't know, but I mean, possibly.
At least as good.
Okay, that's your opinion. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Entity could definitely contest for a top 4 spot. So,
but ultimately, the top 3 are Fnatic and the 2 TNC teams, and I don't think it's even close after that.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it, actually. Wait, so actually, what am I saying? I have top 4 Entity Gaming because Boom ID. I'm definitely not expecting to do well either. I know that they're invited, but I don't think that they're gonna outperform a team like Entity, or frankly even Battle Arena Elite. So maybe 5 if I include them, but I'm going to stick with my top 4. That's going to be your top 4. Fnatic, TNC, and Entity Gaming. Figured it out already in the preview here. Again, 2 of those 4 teams. Yeah, who qualifies? I chose the obvious, Fnatic and TNC Pro Team. I assume you did the same?
I actually haven't done any of my predictions, so I'm going to have to do these after the stream. But I'm going to go with Fnatic and the TNC Tigers. I believe in 1437 as a captain,
really?
More so than I believe in Cuckoo as a captain.
That's a true statement. That is actually a very true statement, and I can get behind that.
Because once it gets into the brackets and we're in best of threes, I think the 1437 will outdraft TNC, which is how they've been losing a lot of their games. Is just getting absolutely crushed in the draft.
Yeah, you might be selling me. I'm still think I'm sticking with TNC Pro Team. Overall, the season hasn't been as strong as in the previous year, and I think that does mean something. But at the same time, I'm still a fan of this squad. I have been going back to last season. I think they're fantastic individually skilled players. Raven, Cuckoo's done all right in the 5. Armel, though, he's definitely continued to make a name for himself in that mid position.
Watch RML against In Your Dream. If you watch any part of C, watch that matchup because it's gonna be really good.
That's like 2 of the top. Obviously, you got to throw out Bet in there, but those are the 3 top mid players in Southeast Asia easily.
Yeah,
and those 3 players right there. So that's going to be fun to watch, no matter what. So slightly different predictions there. Let's go to North America.
Oh,
let's go to North, because I think Europe actually, being that it's only 1. North America, we have 3 teams coming out of.
Yep.
So arguably, maybe a little bit easier however you want to look at it. But again, the teams of the open qualifiers, you have a couple of squads. Now there's this one, Team Baidu qualified from the first one. Again, a lot of this had to do because of the seeding, as we talked about earlier, where VGJ Store matched up against EG. Baidu took advantage, though. They qualified. You were mentioning Grant, I guess, was talking about these a bunch of Chinese-American players that maybe aren't the most popular, but it's we should expect something out of them, perhaps.
Yeah, they've been around. CG has looked really good in the mid lane. His Lina has been insane. His Storm Spirit's been insane. They're obviously very skilled. And, that's the great thing about this qualifier is while we do have these big orgs, the big 4, as it were, we have a lot of really skilled players in this region that, I don't expect Team Baidu to be in the top 4.
I haven't seen them, though. I did not get the chance to watch them in the open qualifiers, so who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. We'll see.
From what I'm hearing, they should have a better chance than Leviathan. But, yeah. Well, it's obviously, at least for me, you have Optic, you have EG, you have Complexity, you have Storm. Those are the 4 teams. I go back to kind of more of a clear cut than maybe some of the other regions. I think Immortals is a completely different they've gone through so many. The fact that they managed to be an invited team surprises me, and I know they didn't break any rules or anything. It's just how this roster's been together that long. I actually honestly couldn't even believe that they were one of the invited teams. It's oh, that's right, they're still there. But yeah, they have not been. Hey, maybe that's going to be to their benefit. Maybe they're just going to all of a sudden shine here because they've been doing nothing but grinding and practicing for the last 3-4 months. That's possible, I guess, but I do not expect them to contest with those other 4 that I listed. And then just a squad, I don't recognize any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
just a squad.
It's just a rando NA stack, pretty much. I definitely think that the top 2 teams, by a fairly significant margin, are Optic and EG in this one. I know that you're probably going to say something about VGJ Storm, but I think the Optic and EG are a step above. And I think that it's ultimately 6 teams playing for 1 slot. Is how I'm looking at this qualifier.
So, because you think Optic and EG are no matter what, yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, so you mentioned about Storm. The thing is, again, you can only pick 3 teams. Yep. And Complexity, they stormed through the open qualifiers. They did look very good. And
not a believer, unfortunately.
The format and everything, I've been a believer for so long, and probably for good or for worse, who knows, but I actually have Complexity over VGJ Storm when it comes to predictions. I do have Optic and EG. I'm with you there. But I do have Complexity over VGJ Storm. And the thing was, I'm sitting there with a prediction, that's right, who do I choose? I don't know. It's tough because, yes, Storm is the team that has been having some success later on in the season, and Complexity's definitely a different roster themselves. But I don't know, just something about this new roster, the way they did in the open qualifiers. I'm feeling pretty good about Complexity. moving on. So they're my third team I do have moving on, but obviously I would not be surprised if Storm advances on either. So you have Storm, I take it, as far as if you were to do predictions?
I'm going to go with Optic Gaming, Evil Geniuses, and Team Leviathan.
That's not, you can't say that. You said that with a straight phrase. I'm actually pretty impressed at that skill right there.
Here's the thing. If VGJ Storm qualifies, how is Resolution going to sub in for a team and carry them to the top 4 at TI?
That's why Complexity is going to qualify. And so then Resolution will be open to do that.
I mean, I'll take Leviathan over Complexity in a BO3 any day.
Jesus, that's not true at all. You do not believe that. You do not believe that. No, that's... Again, the format definitely favors teams like Leviathan. I will give you that. I know that you weren't 100% serious saying that, but I do give you that. That is potential. And yeah, maybe being brought up in chat, I mean, maybe I am underselling Immortals way more than I should be, but I haven't been impressed by players like, frankly, MPs going back to last season with Team Secret. I just not the most impressive carry player to me. Like I said, this roster just has not been doing a lot despite sticking together for more than any other NA team outside of Optic throughout the season. That's why they were invited, but it'll be fun to look out for. Okay, that sets us up to our final region, though. And so leaving this one for last because, like I said, the fact that only one team qualifies out of this makes it a little more dramatic, I think.
I really am excited for this qualifier, I'm not going to lie. Like, as much as I love the NA region, really, really excited for the European one.
I'm with you there. That's a part of me would like. I'm excited to be casting NA, but if I had the ultimate choice, I actually would have chosen Europe because of just the drama that we are going to see. Because as I'm sure you're getting at, which team's going to qualify? I have no clue. I really had a difficult time predicting in the end, and I still am not whatsoever confident because I look at this list of teams, and I could literally see any team qualify. Maybe not Singularity, but any other team I could see. Okay, maybe not Kingdra either, but any other team. The other 60. Okay, maybe not OG. No. So Kingdra and Singularity, probably not. But for that one spot, I think these 6 teams, they all have their reasons as to why they could qualify in this event.
Absolutely. Yeah, is it the redemption of OG? Is it the NA team in Europe? Is it the final? Is it like the new Alliance team in the final tribe is the all-Swedish team? Or is it the old Alliance with the new players on Alliance? Is it Misery leading another ragtag group of high-skilled players to TI? Or is it Kingwin, who were the best team in Europe at the beginning of the season?
Well,
the best team in Europe.
That had to qualify.
For Secret.
Yeah.
Not named Liquid or Secret. They were the best team in Europe at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. No, definitely true. Definitely true. So, yeah, what Kingwin team are we going to see? OG, exactly. It's the storylines for this region is definitely the best out of any region, and it's going to make for some great action. Now, of course, you can only choose one team in the end. Yeah, by the way, Win and Rank, talk about a team that kind of just not really innocent, kind of did come out of nowhere because it was obviously put together last minute. We found out about it, and it happens to be 3 North American players. Go figure. But they did look very good in the open qualifiers themselves, and I could most certainly see them qualifying as we've been talking about. But I'll let you go first. Who did you pick, or who would you pick? Choosing only one team.
Man, so on the spot. It's like,
come on.
Who's it gonna be?
All the battle points.
All the battle points for this one. All the battle points for this one.
I have the final tribe.
Okay, I figured.
Yeah.
I figured.
It's the also obviously have history with them as players, but again they've had a strong finish to the season, and they have the most momentum going in, no doubt. Right now, they have the consistent roster compared to a lot of these other teams. So those are my logical reasons to pick them. Like, I'm not the very most confident, but only selecting one team, I do have them.
You know what? I'll go with Alliance, actually. I thought they looked quite good in the qualifiers. I know that they did lose to Wind and Rain in the first one, but those were very close games, and I thought that Alliance probably should have won. in that series. Like they threw pretty hard.
Yeah.
I thought they looked pretty good, and I think that the potential that they have with the players on their team, I'd say that their ceiling's a little bit higher than the Final Tribe.
Mickey got some recognition. That was fun to see. He finally got some Dota 2 recognition here recently, and again, I've been saying this for a long time now. He's kind of the latest batch of Han players that I feel like he truly can have the biggest impact of them, and he's going to be a big deal. And it was fun to see that clip of his morphling and with the PA and switching back and forth and making the big play there that got the top of Reddit, actually. So it goes to the point, yeah, I could see Alliance, of course, and if he happens to be playing like that, it's going to be a very scary team too. So
yeah, I mean they've got a very good. I think ultimately the meta also kind of favors them a little bit more than it does a team like the Final Tribe, just because Koikva is known for being a fairly greedy player. The meta currently is more greedy than it has been in a while. And I don't know. I'm just gonna go with Alliance for now.
I think OG's. I'm gonna make a bold prediction and say OG won't even make top 4 and go to the playoffs. It's just something about just completely swapping everything around last minute. Not that it was their fault, but they kind of had no choice. I just don't feel the most confident with how they're gonna do. Again, I could be completely off on that, but making a bold prediction there that OG will not make top 4.
It's definitely possible. I think they'll be in the top 4, but I don't think that they'll be in the decider game. I think it'll be Alliance against either Wind and Rain or the Final Tribe.
Alliance TFT final. That would be epic for me. I would love to see that if it comes down to that, absolutely. Although at the same time I wouldn't, because who the hell do I root for? I don't know. It'd be so difficult. It'd be so
Can't lose.
All right. Well, there you go. Those are the regional qualifiers. Got our preview out of the way as far as all the regions. And, again, they've already started. We got the next batch of South America hasn't even been postponed. So if you're watching this here, maybe a good chance it hasn't finished yet. But then that leads us into NA, Europe, and Southeast Asia is the second batch that kicks off on Friday. I believe it's the 22nd. Yeah. I personally am going to be flying out to the BTS hub. I fly out Thursday morning myself, so I'm going to be casting the NA region. I'm really looking forward to that, of course. A region that I love to watch and definitely cast for as well. So going to have a lot of fun there. And speaking of all of that, we don't know exactly what's going to happen just yet, but it's possible a podcast show may pop up from the hub itself throughout the weekend. Maybe even as like a kind of a recap as far as it all finishing up. If not, of course, we'll come back and we'll just do one as we do here to recap it all. But either way, of course there will be a podcast to recap all the group stages and how it's all played out. But I think
who the final teams are for TI.
That's true. Something we didn't actually talk about in previewing the qualifiers and everything, I kind of realized, was the fact that TI this year only has 16 teams. Because it's the 8 initially invited, and now 8 coming from the qualifiers. So, or I'm not wrong on that, right? It's because it's 2, that's 4, 7. Hold on, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 teams. Never mind. I lied.
Teams.
It is 18 teams. Yeah, no, I didn't look at that. Okay, I'm wrong. Never mind. It is 18 again. Yeah. So yeah, and then that'll be fun to kind of preview as far as TI format itself, and if it's the same 2 groups of 9 or whatever, one team gets a line. Anyways, that's down the line. They're getting ahead of ourselves. Elevated, anything else? Wrapping up here.
The game show segment.
Oh, did you have a game show? I mean, did you put one? Okay.
Hell yeah.
I didn't even see that. Okay. Look at you go. All right, let's do that then. What do we got here? For better or for? Yeah, I'll let you do it. Yeah.
It's called for better or for worse. We're basically just gonna say what's worse, what's better, different options, and then go from there.
All right, let's lead it off. It's your game show.
All right. What would be worse? What would be the worst upset? Fnatic not qualifying in the C region, or the single European slot going to an NA team playing from Europe, or EG not making it to TI.
Oof. That's actually kind of tough. So Fnatic not qualifying, EU slot going to NA team, aka War, or EG not qualifying. I think for worse would be EG not qualifying, because as much of a, I'm not the biggest. I've never been the biggest fan of that squad. I think they've been overhyped throughout the season, definitely. At the same time, they are arguably the biggest brand in Dota 2, and to not have the biggest brand name team, and in this case now with the Rust, especially Fly, I've always been a big fan of Fly. I think that would ultimately be the worst of those three scenarios, no doubt. Any team calling for Euro, whatever, I don't care. If they do, then that's hell. Europe deserves that. What about you?
I mean, I know I'm not supposed to agree on this, but I think it's also probably DI just because of that branding thing. It'd be like, I mean, they're like the New York Yankees. Not that many people probably know baseball, but they just bought arguably the two biggest free agents in all of Dota, basically, and brought them into their team and added them to their team that was already like the highest paid, arguably highest skilled players. So I would say EG not making it to DI would be a travesty.
All right, so your next one here. What regional qualifier has the better chances of winning TI8? Wait, that doesn't make sense for better or for worse.
This is the better, right? So it's alternating. What's worse?
Oh,
What's better? What's worse? What's
okay.
better?
Got you. That makes sense. So, okay. Then what regional qualifier has the better chances of winning TI8? Interesting question, actually.
You know what? I'm going to go with China because it's their year. And that's my reasoning.
Such a stupid answer. But I say that because it's also my answer, that yes or no. It's like I'm on the spot now. I would say, it has to be China, right? Like, because I think about all these other regions. So it's not because of it's China's year. It's just because I think of all the other teams that are qualifying from these other regions, and the only ones I could realistically see in a chance would be, NA, you have Optic and EG maybe. Optic, I don't know if they're a TI8 winning team. CIS, definitely not. Southeast Asia, I guess Fnatic, not really. I definitely don't think that would be the case. So, but I could see LFY winning it all. Like, I could see that definitely. So, I think China, but for a much better reason than you had.
All right. What was the worst debacle? NA Open Qualifier number 1 being replayed, the Thunder Predator unpausing to beat Pain Gaming, or IGV being disqualified for a bug that had been fixed already?
I mean, I guess I kind of already said it earlier without even realizing this, but the NA Opens being replayed. For me, that was just the most absurd thing to hear and completely unfair to the actual teams that this event matters for. So, hands down that. The others, as bad as they were, I think that had to be the case for me.
I mean, I already went on a rant about it. Thunder Predator unpausing to beat Pain Gaming. That an admin should have stepped in and been like, what is going on? Stop this nonsense.
Which I guess they kind of eventually did because they have in the remake and everything, but still.
Right.
All right, so who made the better move? North American stack in Europe, aka War, European stack in Southeast Asia with Entity Gaming, or NA moving to South America with SG Esports of Flea and Stanking. Which of those three was the best?
I'm going to say the Flea and Stanking move, actually, just because ultimately they only have to beat Pain Gaming. And I think that that's a higher percentage chance of that happening than anything else.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but I actually think there's an argument for Entity Gaming with their roster and the fact that there's 2 spots in Southeast Asia. And we've talked about already the struggles with the team like TNC and Fnatic themselves. Of course, I expect them to advance on in one of those 2 spots, but it's Eternal Envy, man. Who knows, right? Anything can happen. So I think that was probably the smartest decision for those guys to play in Southeast Asia.
All right, and just to end on a positive note, I know that next one's supposed to be worse, but we're going to go with better. What would be the better storyline? TI being won by a Chinese Open qualifying team.
Okay.
TNC Tigers qualifying over TNC Pro team. or Banana Slam Jamma making it to TI8 as a player?
I mean, I feel like there's a little bit of bias here, right? Like, I mean, that would be a fun storyline because he's just a positive guy, and his stream is just blowing up this year, especially. BSG qualify for TI8 as a player would be absolutely great, and the best storyline for sure for me. I mean, China winning it with either LFY or Invictus Gaming, as we're talking about, maybe, or maybe. Serenity
I was thinking FTD or Team Serenity.
Oh,
personally.
so one of those two teams. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, we've kind of seen that before already with CDEC. So, is I don't know. It's that wouldn't be the most craziest. So I mean, any of those would of course be pretty big. I don't know if TNC Tiger though would be that big, honestly, because like you said yourself, you actually have them qualifying over TNC anyway. So yeah, BSJ for me, hands down.
Yep. I'm with you on that.
You just wanted more love from BSJ. That's the only reason you had that one in there. All right, that was a good call. We like to try to get some game show segments in like that, and maybe try to add some more production value in the future, get some music going and stuff. we're just a basic podcast right now. We are running a little long though, so I do think we should start wrapping this up officially. Anything else? Ask once again before we do.
Nope, I'm good to go.
All right. For those tuning in, want to thank you guys as always for tuning in to the stream. Again, we were joined by just big shout out to Jenkins, who joined us earlier for a good half hour or so. If you missed it, of course, you can watch the VOD. As possible for you guys to check out. So if you're audio listener only, you have that option at the VOD via YouTube or even Twitch. You can do that as well. But I want to thank you once again for tuning in. Like I said, as far as next show, ideally we try for the same time of day every week, but because of how this format's working and me personally going to the BTS Hub, might do one from there this weekend. I'll let you know on social media what the case is. But feel free to leave any feedback as always, and thanks for tuning in. So going to be wrapping up, guys. Until next time, have a good night. Have fun watching the rest of the regional qualifiers, and we'll see you then.